Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for attending this session. My name is Tarek, Amara. I work for Twitch. And today I'll be talking about live streaming with VP9 at Twitch. This presentation is about 30 minutes. I'll be talking for about 20 minutes, and then I'll leave the last 10 minutes for Q&A, if any. For those who do not really know Twitch, Twitch is the largest live streaming platform. We do streaming of video gaming, esports mainly, but we stream other content. We have our own transcoding data centers, our own CDN, our own POPs around the world to gather the streams and transcode them, send them back. But also I'd like to share or show you this little video, which is trying to describe or give you an idea about what Twitch is.
Classics, but he might fall and continue to get ball control. Look at this play from Kronovia. Big aggressive move by South Korea.
What? No, that's not a thing.
He's a beautiful individual.
Oh, I started watching my stream. That's so cool.
You're teaching it the meaning of love.
He is.
No, he's
he
not.
is going
No,
for it.
he's not. Oh my God.
Here's the hard carry. This guy is unstoppable.
This is a very simple painting that you can do even if you've never painted before.
Let's get more Bono.
Say hi.
Oh, good goal. That's it, baby. What a way to end. Wow. What a game.
So as you can see, Twitch is mainly focused on streaming esports events and video gaming. But just to give you more idea, using some numbers, we do have more than 70,000 concurrent channels running at the same time at Twitch. This is the largest scale, the biggest number of channels going live from a single platform. And these numbers will give you more ideas. We do have more than 2.2 unique broadcasters per month. And broadcasters for Twitch are people who stream to Twitch so that Twitch receives the stream, do the transcoding, add all the features we offer, and then stream it back to a larger audiences. Out of these 2.2 million, 27,000 are partners. And partners are people who sign a contract or have a deal with Twitch, and they start monetizing on that. And then we offer them a better transcoding services. More than 15 million daily active users, unique active users. Per month, we have more than 140 million different people visiting Twitch platform and spending more than 10 minutes. And this number, the last number, 355 billion minutes watched per year, is an old number. I think now we're exceeding 400 billion minutes. If you divide that by the total number of users, that's about 95 minutes per viewer on a session when he joins Twitch. And that's 1 hour, 35 minutes, which is an OTT industry, is a big number. Down a little bit to talk about the video. So once we receive a stream from a viewer, we transcode it at multiple qualities, multiple bit rates. And as you can see here, we're offering 1080p 60 as the highest rendition at about 6 megabits per second. Sometimes we low slightly higher bit rate, and we go on the ladder traditionally as an ABR streaming all the way down to 160p. A couple years ago, Twitch used only allows 720p content, which is about 3 megabits per second. And this huge jump is really stressing our pipeline in the sense that most people, we know very well, most people, more than 80% of watchers or people who come to Twitch platform, they consume the highest rendition, which is 6 megabits or 5 or 4 point something megabits per second. And we have always per viewer to accommodate for the highest bit rate. And thinking of a 2.9 million concurrent viewers, so they will be at the same time, we can reach near 3 million people watching Twitch platform. That gives us a total of 17.4 terabits per second. Just to put that number in context, Akamai, which is probably managing 80 to 90% of the world internet traffic, their peak per day is 30 terabits per second. Yeah, please.
Sorry, what number did you say got the highest quality stream? What percentage?
More than 60% of people are watching the highest rendition, the 1080p 60. More than 80% of people are watching the combined 3 highest rendition, 1080p 60. Yes, 1080p 60 and all the way down to 720p 30. So for all these reasons, we need to be careful about allowing high bit rates at Twitch, and we need to always find solutions to be able to keep the quality as is, but find a solution to be able to stream the same content and higher content as we grow at lower bit rates. And this is kind of the problem we're trying to solve by whatever technology you are deploying. So the constraints are three. First of all, it needs to be live. So whatever you hear people talking about, oh, VP9 is a great encoder, it is a great encoder, but in which context? When YouTube or Netflix go and say VP9 is giving us 30% gain, it is in the context of offline encoding. So it could take them a minute, an hour, a day to encode 5 minutes clip. That's fine for them. For our use case, it must be live. So when we receive a 60 frames per second input, it must give out 60 frames per second. And we don't want to add latency as well. We don't even have time to study the content of the input to be able to make educated decisions. Our latency is something we care about. Nowadays, we are reaching below 3 seconds latency at a scale, and we're not willing to compromise that. The other goal for bitrate savings is about 25%. We don't think something that we'll invest at the moment for something that will give us 5 or 10% gain. And there is no room for us to compromise on quality. We'd like to allow whatever we deliver today at the current bitrate for H.264 needs to be maintained with whatever new technology we're going to deploy. It's not magic. The three options available are either H.264, HEVC, or VP9. H.264 is in the sense that are they better encoder that encode H.264 today, which we can deploy, and we can use them to save us that much bits. The other two alternatives are new standards, and by then we started this project around 2017, end of 2017. It's going to be either HEVC or VP9. For H.264, what we did is we talked to main broadcast quality encoder manufacturers, those who are used by Comcast, ESPN, DirecTV. My background comes from traditional broadcast market, so I have fairly good visibility of that market. And we got streams, our content encoded by all of these solutions. Some of them are software, FPGA, ASIC. We open the room, whatever solution is, as long as you can deliver some gains. And unfortunately, the top of these encoders could only deliver 10 to 15%, and not even consistently, above X264 medium, which is our anchor and our benchmark. The other experiment we did is, since we're using X264 as well as other solutions, but for X264, we try to run at slower preset. For those who are familiar with X264, you can run at a medium preset. You even go slower to gain a little bit of compression efficiency. And we went all the way up to the very slow. The only other option after the very slow is the placebo, and that's very, 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 very slow. So that's not something we can consider for real time. And as you can see here, even if we went for the very slow, we could save around 11% of bitrate savings, and that comes at 29% of efficiency in terms of speed compared to the medium preset, which means we need 3 times the processing power using the very slow to deliver the 11% compression gain. So that still does not hit the 25% mark we want. There are other use cases which we will deploy a better H.264 at Twitch, but not for the purpose of this problem we're trying to solve here. So the rest is to study HEVC and VP9. And we approached this from 3 angles: the legal risk, the decoder support out there, and the compression efficiency and the compression gain. For HEVC, I think the legal risk, I probably don't need to talk too much about this. The patented mechanism, the number of pools, the confusion it's bringing to the market is beyond the OTT industry itself. As you can see, there are already 3 pools, and there are even people with patent which are not in any pool. Some of these pools have already defined cost. For content specifically, the MPEG-LA is free. The HEVC Advanced only recently moved for content to be free, and the Velos media are not defined yet. Other patent holders, you need to treat them case by case, and that's really not a comfortable position. Although for content, we seem to be going towards the free content, still on the device industry. The device is where people will watch us. So if people on the device side won't have HEVC supported, there is no point us streaming that for them. And to be honest, although it is very expensive, the highest risk is that it is unknown. So that's what gives lots of uncertainty to the industry not to deploy HEVC to a big extent nowadays. VP9 is not risk-free. VP9, although it says it's royalty-free, there is no charge, there is always a possibility for anyone to come and challenge Google for that, although Google is is using it on a massive scale. And there are talks about Google have already signed a deal with MPEG-LA to cover the 2 generations, which are VP8 and VP9, but there is still a little risk. Now, from decoder support, I'm dividing this into 3 areas: the browser support, the hardware support, and the general devices support. So from a browser support, as you can see here, the 5 left columns are for desktop and laptop browsers, and the rest is mobile devices. You can see the top row. H.264 is pretty much deployed everywhere. That's a universal encoder so far, and probably the last universal encoder. HEVC is not supported on Firefox and Edge, and VP9 is supported on those 2 platforms. And Firefox and Chrome. And Chrome is probably the top browser used by most platforms. So there is a little advantage in terms of playability for Chrome and Firefox. For mobile devices, H.264 is everywhere again. HEVC is on the iOS since 2017, and although it is required on Android devices starting from 5.0 and beyond, lots of devices who still have the hardware HEVC decoding, that hardware is not turned on, it's not OEM'd. And again, that comes back to licensing issues. VP9 obviously is not on iOS, and probably is not going to be on iOS devices, but it is fairly mature and available on lots of devices. In general, just to show you this graph is showing that if you look at the installation base on desktop, laptops, mobile tablets, and connected TVs, VP9 is pretty much double the penetration. These data come from 2017. We have seen some slightly increase in both sides, but also HEVC penetration has started to go much better, but still gives us a good base for VP9 to start with. Where Twitch stands in all this. If we encode our streams today we only encode H.264. So if we start adding HEVC and we start adding VP9, let's see how many of our minutes will be watched using either of these standards. So for HEVC on the browsers, since we rely a lot on Chrome or Firefox, it's only 2.8% versus 50% of our content could be delivered using VP9. For mobile devices, 7% of our content could be watched using HEVC, and that's mainly the iOS devices. For VP9, all the Android devices, it could reach up to 10%. So that's also another reason why we thought VP9 is the way to go. Now, to find a good encoder that runs real-time 1080p 60, which is our highest rendition, before we do that, we did some software calculation and experiments. So what we did here is our benchmark, which is the first column, which is H.264, X264 medium preset. We encoded whatever is available on HEVC software, just to have a rough guidance, and we used X265. In order to achieve real-time encoding, we needed to run ultra-fast, and the performance was not much better than X264. VP9, the library available is libvpx libvp9, which is the Google library. In order to achieve real-time, we need to run speed 6, and that gives a worse result than H.264. So we feel VP9 could deliver something for us, but we're stuck in the sense that there is no software encoders out there. There are lots of people working on HEVC encoding. Lots of companies build ASIC, FPGA solutions, some software solutions as well. But VP9, pretty much I would say 4 companies, as far as I know, were by then, end of 2017, doing any work related to VP9. And that's where we digged a little bit deeper and we start dealing with third parties. So we start talking to NG Codec, and we realized they're starting some work on developing a VP9 model for real-time implementation. We ran an evaluation of that towards end of 2017, and it does deliver consistently almost 25% compression savings above H.264. That encoder will be running on the VU9P FPGA, which is a Xilinx FPGA. Xilinx as well are working with us to deliver the scalar IP as well as helping us within the integration. All of this will be running on the AWS server. So AWS, I'm sure lots of you are familiar with the F1 instance, which is an FPGA instance on the clouds, which you can go and use. That's the hardware we're going to be using to be able to deploy this solution. Now, this is a VP9 encoding, but we don't need an encoding. We need the whole solution from A to Z with whatever mechanism we're going to deploy. We're still going to do an ABR. Just a step back. Today at Twitch, we deliver H.264 using HLS. We use transport stream or MP4 packaging as well. And we looked at what is the best way for us to add VP9. And it's not only adding a codec. We are really transforming our platform from being a single encoder platform where lots of blocks are aware of what's going on to a platform where we can have multiple encodes at the same time. And that's already a big task. We're changing pretty much everything in our pipeline to be that smart and that adaptive. So we wanted this to be as least disturbative, to be not disturbative at all. So the idea is, we realized although HLS doesn't officially support VP9, only supports H.264 HEVC, we can always use it because we're using our own player. So all we need to do is just to signal on the master manifest file that this is VP9. And as long as it's our own player and we can handle that data correctly, it will work, and it works. So the packaging as well is FMP4 because that will help us for low latency and normal latency operation mode. And this is the plan for us to deploy. You don't need to wait for Twitch if you want to do a proof of concept yourselves. I did the proof of concept using Shaka Player, Exo Player. They do support that at the moment, and you can use the Google Shaka packager, which will take a VP9 stream, and it will help doing the whole proof of concept. Lots of other things needs to be taken into consideration. So as I said probably earlier, what we want is move from Twitch from a single codec to a multiple codec. This will facilitate in the future us adding HEVC if needed, AV1, VVC, whatever codec comes in. It's very important to realize we also need to keep the H.264 stream for all the customers who will not be able to watch VP9. We will be generating dual manifest files, so it's lots of duplication of work, but it's slightly different output. We need to think about making sure we synchronize our H.264 and VP9 stream in the sense that you don't want a big latency or a big delay between the two of them. You need also low latency because we do deliver today at Twitch between 2 and 3 seconds latency end-to-end. We need to be able to deliver that using VP9. DRM is something we're working on H.264 and it needs to be supported. And lots of business logics needs to be created. We used to be a single codec. If it, for example, something broke, there is no much we can do. Now imagine we have 2 codecs. If one goes down, are you gonna give the customer the possibility to move to the other encoder? And lots of scenarios which you need to take care of. Lots of burden. This project is ongoing. We're hoping to be able to have a scalable proper launch sometime in 2019, probably in the first couple of quarters. That's our target. That's the technical side. Now I'd like to move a little bit to show you a demo and see what you think. Because, OK, VP9 is great. You're going to deploy it on this hardware. How does it look? I'm going to show you a video of one side is VP9 at 4.5 megabits per second. The other side is H.264 at 6 megabits per second. So that's the 25% bitrate savings. I'm going to try to ask you by show of hands at the end who thinks there is no difference, who thinks left is better, and who thinks right is better, just to appreciate how we are not trying to harm at all the viewer experience. Let me. This video doesn't have any audio, so I'm going to allow myself to talk as you watch. This is one of the hardest content we can face. Lots of grains, bit noise. The input is already pre-encoded at about 15 megabits per second using H.264 medium preset, so it's got some level of blockiness. Showing you 3 minutes. The video itself is 1 minute. First, I'm going to show you left-left. And then it's going to be right-right. And the last one is where we try to put left and right from each one so that you see if we try to see if you can see any difference. Probably viewing distance is not perfect, but it's all we can do on this presentation, really. And now this is the third run when one half is VP9, one half is H.264. Probably it makes it easier to detect differences, if any. Right, okay. So can I ask by show of hands, who thinks there is no difference? That's a big majority. Who thinks left is better? One. Who thinks right is better? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, thank you. I'm not gonna give you the answer, should I? No, the right is VP9, surprisingly, and the left is H.264 at 6 megabits per second. We feel, and that's not the final version we're deploying, that's the simulation model. We have checked the version, the hardware which is running as we speak, and that is already fixing few of the issues. I personally, at some point, preferred the H.264 slightly when I digged a little bit deeper, but just to show you, we're not gonna compromise the quality. We can deliver 25% using VP9 hardware. I only have a couple of slides to go to. That's basically the summary, actually. So what I'm trying to say here, Twitch is really a huge platform. We are an international #1, I would say, streaming platform with more than 70,000 concurrent channels, again. We do have more than 2 million unique broadcasters. These are 2 million people who stream to Twitch, and then Twitch will distribute that outside, and these are unique broadcasters. To reduce our costs, it's very important for us to use new technology. For instance, VP9 is what we're gonna do. Our research so far, we only found an FPGA or hardware accelerated solution is the way to go. What I would like to add at the end is we're building our platform, we're growing it really well. If any partners is willing to come and leverage it, try to incorporate it within their solution. If you have needs to stream, including the player, including the encoder, please approach me towards the end, and I'll put you in touch with the right people. That brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you very much, and I'll take any questions if you have any.
Hey, do you use any particular strategy that you can describe to keep the chat or any other synchronized interactive stuff synced up? Because you're talking about 3 seconds, which is okay, but then they must be coming in at different places for different people, or does it not matter for that, that platform? That's
probably slightly not necessarily linked to VP9. It's what's happening today in H.264. And I don't think there is necessarily link. We try to accelerate everything as much as we can. So the video, we try to reduce our latency as much as we can, and the chat is in general delayed to the video. So that's not something we synchronize or we keep. But what we're trying to synchronize, what I was mentioning here, is both videos. The H.264 stream and the VP9 stream needs to be as close from each other as possible. And at some point, probably they need to be segment aligned completely. Imagine, I'll give you a couple of scenarios. First of all, we'd like to keep the latency as low as possible for both of them. We already achieve a good latency on H.264, so probably I would have put this slightly different in terms of we'd like to keep the VP9 latency as low as we can as well. And also, there is one slight more reason. If we lose the VP9 channel, for example, what's going to happen is we're going to allow people who are watching VP9 to move automatically to H.264. And we don't want to create a discrepancy. We'd like that transition to be as seamless as possible. It's not going to be completely seamless, but at least the alignment will help.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Tarek, for a great presentation. Interesting that you're using, VP9 bound in an HLS stream, which obviously is not in the standard. Is Twitch interested in trying to influence the standard? There is an ITU working group to make that official.
The first answer is no. We're not trying to do that. Probably In my point of view, I think Apple are not very interested on VP9 at this stage. That's number one. Number two, since we are using our own player for the VP9 viewers, we could look at HLS as our own method of streaming, so we don't care, it's not exposed for the outside world. Using HLS today is a starting point. We might potentially one day move to Dash, CMAF, whatever the technology is allowing us, but it seems to be the most straightforward, direct to the point to deliver the gains of VP9 as soon as we can.
Any other questions? Let me just point out while I'm walking, the gentleman who just had a question is from NG Codec, so if you have any questions about their solution, you might want to catch up with him at the end of the session.
You said that you could fall back from VP9 to H.264. Do you do that in the same player? So could I replay the previous content that was a VP9 and go seamlessly to the H.264 or not? Or it brings to the two parts of this video?
Unfortunately, it's not going to happen that way. We cannot do it completely seamlessly because there must be a mechanism first that the player is detecting that the VP9 stream is lost, and then it needs to switch, request a new master manifest, new playlist. There is a little delta in there. And it's going to be almost as if it's a complete new play session.
A little off topic, but given that you're one of the inventors of the S-frame in AV1, could you just say how that might hypothetically help you in the future?
Right, that's a slightly different topic. For those who are familiar with S-frame, for those who are not familiar with S-frame, today, if you look at H.264 or VP9 or HEVC, the only way to transition is at a keyframe. So every segment must start with a keyframe, and one of the methods to reduce the latency, the end-to-end latency, is by shortening your segments. This is not the only method, but one of the methods. But the more you start shortening your segments, the more closer the keyframe become from each other, and the more you hurt the video quality. So one of the features we suggested in the S-frame, and it is now part of the spec, it's called switch frame. So what you can do is you don't need to start every segment from a keyframe. You can start one segment from a keyframe, the next segment from what we call S-frame, and then after that, you can introduce a keyframe so that you increase the distance between keyframes. The S-frame role will allow you to be able to switch. So in theory, you can decode the S-frame almost independently. Independently from a stream point of view, so you don't need any information from the stream or syntax elements, but it will use whatever is available in your buffer as a reference frames to decode. Surprisingly, that feature, if we move, for example, from a 1 second gap to a half-second segment, it does save us quite a lot, more than 20%. AV1 is something we definitely are excited about. We're part of the spec, and Amazon is part of the Alliance of Open Media founders. As soon as something is ready, we'll deploy it. Obviously, as always, live streaming is the most challenging than VOD. We need real-time encoders that everyone else doesn't need. So we probably won't be the first to deploy it, probably, hopefully not the last. But at least for VP9, we are the first to deploy a real-time VP9 encoding at scale. And that's in itself, we're something very proud and excited to deliver.
I don't know if you addressed this again. Thank you. How do you guys achieve the low latency? You guys were saying you're sub 3 seconds, so the chat keeps in.
I probably should get Yoshi, if you're hearing me. So there are multiple ways. We still deliver using HLS. We do chunk transfer and fragmented MP4. So instead of waiting for the whole segment to be generated, as soon as a little bit of data is generated, we allow it to go out. And everything else, well, there are lots of work to be done on the player side. And we do deliver, actually, I've heard the average statistics we have over in USA is 2.6 seconds end-to-end latency. There is a nice video that shows the player is talking, and someone is chatting to him, and he's responding pretty much real time. That's really an impressive demo. I can at some point share with you the presentation about low latency done by Yoshi. He's the transcoded team lead, and then you can have a look and get more details.
Thank you. Hi, Tarek. Quick question on H.264. Actually, you said you're currently transcoding H.264. You're going to continue to do so for a while. So for a while, you will duplicate the workflows. So transcoding costs will go up. You will publish kind of both H.264 and VP9. So the 25%, is going to be realized in a kind of smaller amount. Where exactly do you see that realized on the CDN? So you're going to end up pushing everything to the edge anyway.
What counts is, when we talk about traffic, is what is ultimately consumed by customers. So I'll give you a simple example. Today we have 5 customers. They're all watching H.264 at 6 megabits per second. That's 60 megabits per second in our of total traffic we need to accommodate for. If half of them will watch VP9, half of them will watch H.264, so we're saving 25% on those watching VP9, and that gives us a total of 12.5% savings of the total. So the savings on bandwidth is going to allow us to accommodate for higher peaks, more customers coming in, so the aggregated total delivered bit rate of all these viewers together will be lower, although the number of viewers will be higher. So it's both on the backbone and the CDN. The replication is going to need to do double work because we replicate both the H.264 and the VP9. Its ISP cost will go low because that's really where the total consumed bits is what you get charged upon. It's not necessarily linear, but it keeps building. So these are the areas we would like to reduce. Basically, it's the aggregated total bits we deliver that we want to reduce, which have a direct effect on our cost.
Just to add to that, as well as compression, are you looking at other technologies like multicast ABR and the CDN to alleviate the traffic?
Sorry, can you speak slightly louder?
As well as compression, are you looking at other technologies like multicast ABR, for example, considering that you do live at the backbone that can help you alleviate that traffic?
We are looking, but probably there are better people who will help address that question better than me. I'm basically trying to find better transcoding technology which allow us that side of savings. I'm not saying reducing the bit rate and better quality is the only solution. It's definitely one of the core solutions that we can adopt, and it is fit for purpose. But definitely there are other ways which our CDN team, our replication team are studying to be able to deliver better service.
Okay, let's wrap it up. Thanks for coming, and thank you, Tarek, for a great talk.
Thank you very much.